On this.
I think. Oh, another one in.
Okay, so again, the talk is haunted houses and other tall tales of Louisville. My name is Steve Weiser. Been giving talks here many years, probably 10 years if not more. And a lot of my images today are per this photographer. His name is Tim Miller. So whenever you see a haunting photograph, Tim has taken that photograph. I want to give him the credit for that.
Is that you?
No, that's not me.
Oh, okay.
So do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
About 50% of the population believes that something strange is happening out there, whether or not you believe in ghosts or not. What creates a ghost? A traumatic experience, such as a murder or an accidental death, something traumatic that causes you to die, they say creates a ghost. How do ghosts appear? Either via an apparition, a cold spot, unexplained noises, strange electrical malfunctions, shadows, orbs, or other things. And we'll be discussing these throughout the presentation. So they say New Orleans is the most haunted city in America. I'm not sure if you all have been to New Orleans, but I've taken a number of their ghost tours and I don't find them as scary as other cities. Normally their ghost tours always ended up in a bar or a gift shop. So a lot of the ghosts are connected to souvenirs and drinks, but their cemeteries are very haunting, I found. They're all above grade because the soil there is all water, and so they really can't bury people in the ground. They had to put them up above, and so it's kind of haunting when you go to the cemeteries in New Orleans. But to me, Savannah is the most haunted city in America. I've taken several of their ghost tours, and they raise the hair on the back of your neck when they talk about the ghosts that they have living in Savannah. Very scary things. And a lot of it has to do with their old cemetery, which was located in the center part of town of Savannah. And as Savannah grew, they needed more space to put people, and thus they relocated the people from the old cemetery into newer cemeteries, and they built on that old cemetery old ground. They built some buildings over that old cemetery. You think they got everyone out?
No.
Not quite. And when you go to the Savannah, on the ghost tours, they talk about this block in downtown Savannah and all the creepy things that happened there. Because we don't think we got everyone out when they moved them to the new cemeteries. And we got a similar situation here in Louisville. Downtown at 11th and Jefferson Streets, there was a park there. It's called Baxter Square Park. And used to be an old cemetery. There was called Pioneer Cemetery. And do you think they got everyone out when they created a park there, when they moved everyone out?
No.
Well, right down the street from Baxter Square Park, there was a church. And it's been said that this church has strange things going on in it, so much so that they had to hire a person to come in and get these spirits out of the church. Yeah, exercise, exactly. Okay, we know you're here, can you leave now? So they say that some strange things have happened within this church.
What kind of church is it?
It's a United Church of Christ, evangelical church. So George Keith, who was who lived here in Louisville, his brother was the poet John Keats over in England. And George Keats owned a nice house in downtown Louisville. It's called the Englishman's Palace. And a little biographical, his daughter was named Rosalind Keats. And she was buried, she died at a young age, and she was buried in that Pioneer Cemetery. And so when they moved everyone out over to Cave Hill Cemetery, they could not find Rose. It says Rose did not come along when they tried to rebury everyone from the Pioneer Cemetery over to Cave Hill Cemetery. And the reason for that is children are very difficult to find when they're exhuming grave sites. They deteriorate a lot faster than us adults, and thus when they're looking for burials of children, they frequently cannot find those burials. It's kind of sad, but more than likely Rose is still there at the old Pioneer Cemetery. So who's afraid of ghosts? Well, we have Ghostbusters out there to protect us from the ghosts. Some of you may have seen that movie with Bill Murray. In fact, I once saw a Ghostbuster ambulance downtown. Believe it or not, that movie is over 40 years old now, so most of you probably saw it back in the day
Yeah.
with your kids. You probably had your kids and you went to see that movie. But the star of that movie was Bill Murray, and he was here in Louisville. He made a movie here locally called Stripes. It was an Army movie. It was sort of centered around Fort Knox, but a lot of the scenes were here in Louisville. And one of the scenes involved the Seelbach Hotel. And the Seelbach has Louisville's most famous ghost residing there. Her name is the Lady in Blue. Is the most famous ghost of Louisville down at the Seelbach Hotel. She actually has a name. Her name is Patricia Wilson. And on July 15th, 1936, her body was found at the bottom of an elevator shaft there at the Seelbach Hotel.
Oh.
And this news story right here talks about her death right there. Now, we don't know how she might have fallen in that elevator shaft, whether or not it was a murder, someone pushed her into the shaft, or if the doors accidentally opened and she walked in and fell to her death without the cab of the elevator being there. So we're not exactly certain how she died in that elevator shaft, although no one was ever accused of murdering her. But since that day, since 1936, her ghost has been floating about the Seelbach in downtown Louisville. So here's the lobby of the Seelbach. Some of you may have been there. It's a beautiful hotel. And I think the Seelbach folks are kind of trolling us a little bit. Trolling means teasing us. If you go up to the mezzanine level there at the Seelbach, next to the elevators where the elevator shafts are, they have a lady dressed in blue next to the elevators there. So maybe that's Patricia Wilson hanging out there by the elevators. Now then, the reason why Louisville is here is the Falls of the Ohio. And back in the day, back in the 1700s, early 1800s, the navigation of the Ohio River was such that large animals could cross here at the Falls of the Ohio. Buffalo, elk, bear, large animals could literally cross before they raised the pool level of the Ohio due to navigational reasons. And of course, whenever you raise the pool, allow large animals to come across, they create animal paths. A lot of our streets here in Louisville were made by animals as they moved to and from the Falls of the Ohio. Frankfort Avenue, Preston Highway, probably Shelbyville Road, other roads were created by these large animals as they moved to and from the Falls of the Ohio. Now, what happens when you have a lot of large animals here moving up and down? You have people that come and hunt those animals. So we had a lot of Native Americans live here in Louisville. And what happened to our Native Americans that lived here in Louisville? They died, obviously, and how do they bury their natives? They bury them in Indian mounds. So where are the Indian mounds here in Louisville? We know that the Indians were here. We named our parks after them, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, the Iroquois, right?
Oh.
Our parks. But where were the Indians buried? Well, in downtown Louisville, there used to be a large Indian mound right where that red star is. And just north of that red star is a blue oval that represents a lake. There used to be a lake or a large pond in downtown Louisville right north of where that Indian mound was. Back in the 1830s, the Louisvillians were dealing with a lot of insect-borne diseases, mosquitoes, malaria, yellow fever, things like that. And so the Louisvillians decided to get rid of that large body of water to get rid of the mosquitoes. So how did they get rid of that large body of water? They took that Indian mound and pushed all the contents into that lake. So they destroyed the Indian mound, but they also got rid of the mosquitoes. So what's there today? Today, where the red star is, there's a surface parking lot there, so there's no longer an Indian mound there. But just north where that pond was, there's a state office building there, and I have talked to some of the state employees there who say, yes, some strange things happen in that building.
Wow.
So are the Native Americans kind of restless, didn't like to be moved in that manner? You should never disturb the dead, as they say, and by moving that Indian mound, they may have created some spirits out of that. A good example of that is the Denver airport down in Denver. I'm not sure if y'all have flown through the Denver airport. It was built about 30, 40 years ago. Very modern airport, as you can see. But it is also the largest airport land-wise in the United States. I forget how many acres it is, but it's hundreds of acres of land. And in creating that airport, they disturbed a lot of Indian burial locations there in that area. By the way, if you go to your computers and put in Denver Airport Ghost, look at all the websites that come up talking about all the strange things that happen at the Denver airport.
Wow.
Some of you may recall that when the Denver airport first opened, the baggage claim system did not work properly. It was malfunctioning all the time, and some have attributed that to the ghost there at the Denver airport. But here in Louisville, we have a similar situation. This is an aerial view of the Louisville airport with the runways there. And if you look where that red circle is, you'll see a green round spot right there. And what that is that's an Indian burial location right there around UPS location at the airport. In fact, there have been a number of Indian burials here at the airport. Back in the 1970s, there was a large archaeology dig out at the airport to sort of determine who was buried out there. There used to be a large Indian village out there at the airport back in the day. And so, yes, but I've looked and I don't think we've had any ghost sightings inside our airport, but they are buried there. Now then, talking about tall tales, some say that Hogan's Fountain there at Cherokee Park, that on a full moon night, that Pan, the little sculpture there at the top of the Hogan's Fountain, that little statue, gets down and runs around the base. Now you usually know what happens on a full moon up at Hogan's Fountain. There's a lot of spirits going around, not so much the ghostly kind, but the drinking kind, if you will. And so that might be the cause for that sort of situation. We used to have the Castleman statue there at Cherokee Park. It has since been moved, but they used to say that on New Year's Eve, at the stroke of midnight, under a full moon, that the horse would change its position. It would change its legs, stance, if you will. And again, on New Year's Eve, what goes on with that? A lot of spirits being imbibed, if you will, and so who knows what you might see hanging around there. In Iroquois Park, they've said that a headless woman runs around in Iroquois Park. I've not heard any talk about that recently, but I would not want to see a headless woman out running around Iroquois Park. Now then, probably the biggest tall tale we have here in Louisville is out at the Pope Lick Trestle, where you see the Goat Man. Some of you may have heard of the Goat Man situation. It's out at this trestle out just south of the giant Snyder Freeway and Tellersville Road. Here is a map of it. So there's the Snyder Freeway over there, Tellersville Road, the train trestle right here, located there. And the tall tale is that if you go out on the middle of this train trestle, let me go back, go out to the middle here, the Goat Man will appear. Unfortunately, that's a very tall tale. Do not do that. A number of people actually have been killed doing that because they're out in the middle of the trestle and a train comes along, there's nowhere to go.
Oh.
And so you create your own ghost at that situation. But anyways, If you do want to go see a goat man, go down to 21C Hotel. At their bar, they have a goat man statue there. And here's a representation of a goat man that I got off the internet. Half man, half goat. But do not go out on the trestle. But that is a tall tale. And just within the last few years, a couple from Cincinnati, I think, were out on the trestle, and one of them died due to a train coming. So very sad. Do not go out on the trestle. It's a tall tale. It's not real. The Palace Theater, they say that there are several ghosts down there. One of them is of a maintenance man that worked down at the Palace, and he had a heart attack and died within the theater. And they say that you can still smell his cigar smoke sometimes in the theater. Now, a lot of people think there are ghosts in cemeteries. How many people believe there are ghosts in cemeteries? Well, I've talked to the guards, the night guards there at Cave Hill, and they swear they've never seen a ghost. They say, why would ghosts be inside the cemetery just scaring themselves? They want to be out scaring you, the living. So they've never experienced any haunting situations during the night at Cave Hill. Now there are some haunting appearances there. You can see some things here that's kind of different looking. Mausoleums and some figurines that are kind of scary and all. Even some gargoyles that are there. But perhaps one of the more interesting ghost tales, if you will, involve Harry Collins. This is the statue of Harry Collins. He was, his normal business was selling Frito-Lay chips and things like that. But at night and on the weekends, he was a magician. He was an amateur magician, and he would do birthday parties for children, the Crusade for Children. He was the mentor to one of the famous Las Vegas magicians from Louisville, Lance Burton. There he is there. So Harry was Lance's mentor in magicians. I think Harry worked with Lance's mother at Frito-Lay. That's how they got the connection. But of course, Harry Collins, his name connecting to Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini, a very famous magician as well. See if I can get this going again. Now then, one interesting thing about this photograph that I took of Harry Collins is if you look real closely, you see some round, colorful images there. And these are called orbs, O-R-B-S. And photographers say that orbs are created when dust particles interact with sunlight and they create this image on your camera lens. Ghostologists think that orbs are spirits, or ghosts, if you will. And I've taken a lot of photographs of Cave Hill Cemetery over the years, and one, I've never taken them with colored orbs like these. Normally orbs are white. And number two, I never have any other orbs in my photographs. Only when I've taken them of Harry Collins do I get orbs there at Cave Hill. So is Harry trying to send us a message from beyond? Don't know, but that's just interesting to see orbs there at Harry Collins' gravesite. Now then, this is Colonel Sanders' gravesite at Cave Hill. And there's the Colonel. He's showing up there in ghostly form. See, he's kind of flying in there. But I always found it kind of interesting to go and visit your own gravesite, if you will, just like the Colonel did back in the day. So kind of ghost, if you will. Eastern Cemetery, they say, might have ghosts there. I'm not certain. I don't think more than likely ghosts are there. But Eastern Cemetery does have a what's called a grave robbing history to it. People have done some grave robbing back in the day. Kind of a bad to do that sort of a thing. But believe it or not, there is a Louisville institution that has a grave robbing history where they used to rob graves. This institution did so. Does anyone know what institution that is? That used to rob graves here in Louisville.
Medical school?
You got that right. The University of Louisville. That is correct. U of L. And James Guthrie, who helped bring the Louisville Medical School from Lexington, Transylvania University over to Louisville. He convinced the students over in Lexington to come to Louisville because we have more graves to rob here in Louisville than Lexington did.
What did they want out of the graves?
Bodies to experiment on, to practice on. Usually they robbed the graves over in southern Indiana. They really didn't do much here in the Louisville area, from what I understand. But they got caught several times over in southern Indiana digging up graves, believe it or not. But yeah, they wanted the bodies to experiment on. But there are some people buried on the campus of U of L, believe it or not. Justice Louis Brandeis and his wife Alice were cremated, and their ashes were interred just to the right, here, just to the right of the entrance to the Brandeis School of Law. There on the far right is their grave sites there, but they were cremated and actually put there. So I'm not certain if the law students see any ghosts, but I'm sure doing their test late at night or studying, they might see some strange things happen. Okay, my church is called St. Francis of Rome. It's a Catholic church in the Clifton neighborhood. And a few years ago, I did a history book on the old church. It was built in 1887. And there's the book that I did. And I list Father Jerry Eifler and my name, and then also list another author there. I'm forgetting the name, it's not showing up there on my screen. But I list him as a ghostwriter because he, that other co-author died back in the 1960s. But yet I was able, his daughter gave me his historical notes of the church, and so I used a lot of that information into this book. So I gave a ghostwriter credit on the cover of my book. So that's a little ghost connection. But let's continue with St. Francis of Rome. This is the interior of St. Francis of Rome for the midnight Christmas Mass. And so when I was doing this book, I wanted to take a lot of photographs of the various masses there at the church. And so, of course, Christmas Eve Mass, let's do that. But if you look real closely, there are orbs throughout that photograph. I could not use this photograph in my book because of all of the orbs. There are dozens of orbs in there, a lot of little white specks of spirits, if you will, perhaps. Why wouldn't the spirit be at Christmas midnight Mass, you know, when you think about it? Also, here is Father Jerry Eifler, and there are orbs hovering around him as well. You see all the little white dots. So again, I could not use this photograph in my book because it was kind of haunting, if you will, with the orbs in it. But the old school there, adjacent to St. Francis of Rome, the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth were the instructors there at the school. Here's a photograph of them there. And one of them boarded a Piedmont airliner on August 10th, 1968. The airliner took off from Louisville, flew to Charleston, West Virginia. Not sure if you all are familiar with the airport there at Charleston, West Virginia, but it's up on the mountainside. And unfortunately, the pilots misjudged the airport and flew into the side of the mountain and killed most of the people on board. Oh. There is the headline there, 5 Louisvillians among 32 killed in plane crash. Believe it or not, a few people did survive that crash. However, Sister Frances Eccles did not. She was killed. One of the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth died in that plane crash. This is her grave site. I was just recently out at the campus there near Bardstown, took a photograph of her grave site. And when I was doing this book for St. Francis of Rome, I talked to parishioners just like you, just normal folks, who kept asking me if I was going to include the ghost in the book. Because a number of them have seen Sister Frances pushing a broom through that old school building ever since. I've been there numerous times. I've never seen Sister Frances there, but I've talked to enough parishioners who swear they see her there. So I'll let y'all decide if what they're smoking or whatever to do that. I don't know. Anyways, St. Martin de Tours Church, also a Catholic church down in the Phoenix Hill neighborhood. And up front, they have skeletons up by the altar. So up here by the front altar area, they have two skeletons, one from Roman days. One's a Roman warrior and the other is a young girl from what I understand. But to me, that's kind of a scary situation. You're there at Mass looking up and you see skeletons. I think they may have done that just to keep the children interested in Mass. But anyways, kind of a scary situation there. 4th Street Live and the Cathedral of the Assumption. 4th Street Live was built on a cemetery as well. The Prather family cemetery was located there on 4th Street between Liberty and Muhammad Ali. And they moved the Prathers out over to Cave Hill Cemetery many years ago. And do you think they got them all out? Probably not. In fact, if you go down 4th Street Live around 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, you might see some strange people walking about who have visited some of the taverns there.
Down there.
Yeah, you may not want to go down there at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then the Cathedral of the Assumption, they have people buried in the crypts there as well. Some of the archbishops and other, I think Bishop Flagey is buried there as well. But to my knowledge, no one has seen a ghost there at the cathedral, but they are buried beneath it in the crypts there. Now then, another ghostly sighting here at the Brennan House. It's a historic house in downtown Louisville, and it's one of only 3 old houses still remaining from the 1830s. Downtown Louisville used to be all residential. Now it's all commercial with big buildings and all. But there are 3 houses still remaining, and one of them is called the Brennan House. This is Thomas and Anna Brennan. They had a number of children. And when the last child passed away, his name was Thomas Brennan. He was a doctor. He died in the early 1960s. And so when he died, all of the Brennan possessions remained in this house, because here is the Brennan gravesite at Cave Hill Cemetery. And while Thomas and Anna had 7 children, the children had no children, which meant there were no heirs, no descendants that would take all their possessions and distribute them. So when Thomas Brennan passed away, all of their earthly possessions are still there at the Brennan house. All their china, furnishings, clothing, everything. It's like a little mini time capsule, if you will, of Louisville history. And they say that on a full moon night, if you go by the Brennan house at night, you see little apparitions up at the very top there. You see them flying in there. That the Brennans come back to visit all their stuff. I'll let y'all decide if that's true or
Now,
not.
what
but
street's that on?
that's down at the 5th near Chestnut, 5th and Chestnut.
On 5th and Chestnut.
That's correct.
It's 5A.
Yeah. And it's one of the last historic homes all intact in downtown Louisville.
On 5th,
On 5th Street. On 5th, it's just south of Chestnut Street. I don't know the exact address. It's between Broadway and Chestnut, right in the middle
You
there.
have the address?
I don't have the address, but if you just Google Brennan House, you could find it. It's now kind of a house museum as such. They say the Belle of Louisville has ghost on it, but whenever you see a visitor attraction that has a ghost, be very wary of that, because more than likely they're just trying to lure you into the gift shop there at these attractions. And I've talked to the staff here at the Belle of Louisville, and they say they've never heard of a ghost. Other people claim they've seen ghosts there, but those that are on it all the time say no, there's no ghost. The Brown Hotel. They say that J. Graham Brown, who's depicted there in a statue, who lived at the Brown Hotel, that people see his apparition roaming the halls of the Brown Hotel. But if you ask me, the Brown's trying to catch up with the Seelbach Hotel. Well, the Seelbach has a ghost, we need to have a ghost, so they claim that J. Graham Brown is there. Now, J. Graham Brown did a lot of great things for the city of Louisville. He helped create the Louisville Zoo, the Brown Cancer Center, and the Kentucky Derby Museum, so we do want to remember him for those achievements. Now then, another famous ghost house, haunted house, is the Peterson Dumenial House in Crescent Hill. And they have the lady in white there. There's the lady in white. And there she flies off. So the question is, there was a little haunting photograph by my friend Tim Miller. And you can see the cupola light there. That means the ghost is in residence. And so the question is, who is the lady in white? Why is the lady in white haunting the Peterson Dumino house? So the story goes that many years ago, that a child got lost in the Crescent Hill neighborhood, wandered onto the site of the Peterson Dumino house. The lady in white came out, took the child by the hand, and put the little child up on the steps and said, "Your mother will be here shortly to pick you up." Sure enough, the mother shows up, sees the little child, takes the child home, and at that time the mother looks back at the Peterson Dumino house. All the lights had been on and they immediately all go off. So that's one of the tales that they say about the Peterson Dumino house. And there's been other accounts of other children getting lost, and that lady in white comes out and helps care for the child until the mother shows up. So who is this lady in white, and why do people see her there? So let's do I did a little research on it. I've been going to the Peterson Dumino house for over the past 40 years. Always wondered about the lady in white. I heard all the stories. So me, a historian, there's got to be a reason why the lady in white is showing up. What traumatic event happened at the Peterson Dumino house to create a ghost? I never heard of a murder or any other major incident happening there. So let's dig into the history of the house and find out why. So let's start our research at the cemetery. Let's go to the Cave Hill Cemetery, where all of the Petersons and Duminils are buried. So this is the Peterson family plot. This is Joseph Peterson's headstone. You can see, you can read the name, Joseph Peterson. He was the patriarch. He was the father of everything there. Next to him is his wife, Caroline. But if you look at her headstone, you can't read it as good as his. Most of her information had weathered off. You cannot read her information. Well, that's kind of strange, don't you think? That's his you can read, hers you can't. So that's possibility number one. Next were the Petersons' grandkids. They had two granddaughters, Eliza and Carrie. And if you notice, they have an L in the middle of their names. What does the L stand for? Let me see. So here again is the Peterson plot. There is Joseph and Caroline Peterson, the parents. And then over here to the side, we have Lindenberger, Jacob Lindenberger. That's the L, Lindenberger. So we have Eliza Lindenberger, and we have Carrie Lindenberger. And another headstone a little bit farther back is this, that you can not even read the inscriptions on it, and that is the granddaughter's mother. This is the daughter of Joseph and Caroline Peterson. She died early. And then Jacob, who was the father, he remarried to someone else there. So, here's the daughter of the Petersons, her headstone there. Again, you cannot read it. It does say Carrie on it, C-A-R-R-I-E. So let's go to the Cave Hill Cemetery website, do more research on all of this. On the Cave Hill Cemetery website, they have a database that you can put in the name of who you're looking for right there. So I put in Lindenberger, since that's actually the name of who I think the ghost might be. So up at the very top here, you see Carrie Lindenberger, died on October, looks like October 17th, 1866, or October 1st, something in that neighborhood. October of 1866. That would be 68 years ago, I want to say, if I'm doing my math correct now. So she died on that date. Okay. Well, my antenna's up. How did Carrie die? She died at a very young age. Why would she have died early? So I did some more research, found a Jacob Lindenberger infant that died on August 24th, 1866, just about a month or so prior to Carrie's death. I kept looking. I found another Lindenberger who died on the exact same day. Richard Lindenberger, Jacob Lindenberger, both died August 24th, 1866. Wow, what a coincidence, two dying on the same day. I kept looking, and believe it or not, I found another Lindenberger, Thomas Lindenberger, also died on the exact same date, August 24th, 1866, about 6 weeks prior to Carrie Lindenberger, their mother's death. So essentially what's happened that create this traumatic ghost situation is Carrie more than likely died of childbirth with triplets, is my estimation on that. And that's one reason why Carrie, who is the lady in white, comes back and cares for the children of the neighborhood, because she had 3 children. She also had the other Eliza and the other granddaughter that lived there, and so she wanted to protect the children of the neighborhood. So whether or not that's true, the lady in white, I'll leave it up to your estimation. But I will say this, I might have seen the lady in white there as well. A year or so ago, I was at a meeting there at the Peterson-Dumino house. We were in the dining room, sitting around a table, discussing some things. And all of a sudden, all of us, not just me, but all of us saw a flash of white go through the living room next to the dining room there.
Oh,
It's just a white streak like that. And we all said it at the same time and go, what was that? So we all got up, we looked around, couldn't see anything that would have created that white flash of light through the living room. And I've also talked to a number of caterers who are there late at night. They claim that when they lock up the Peterson-Dumino house at night, that they see the lady in white floating about then as well. They see an apparition go through the house. So it's not just me, not just the caterers. A number of people have seen the lady in white there. I'll leave it again whether or not you believe that. But we do have the history of these 3 infants dying there at the house. So here are some haunting photographs of the Peterson-Dumino house that my friend Tim Miller created. I'm not sure if anyone's been to the PD house. It's a beautiful historic house.
Now, what's the address, please?
This one is at 301 South Peterson Avenue.
South what?
South Peterson,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, in Crescent Hill.
Are you going?
Now, one of the interesting
I was
things,
thinking, I don't know anything but 4th Street.
one of the interesting things about the Peterson-Dumino house is, in Frankfort Avenue, if you're familiar with Crescent Hill, used to have a lot of beautiful mansions that lined it. These great mansions that I have depicted here were along that stretch of Frankfort Avenue and Crescent Hill. All of these homes have since been destroyed or demoed. They no longer exist.
Oh,
Only one house remains, the Peterson-Dumino house. The only reason why we think it still remains is the lady in white is protecting it. I'll let y'all decide if that's true or
is
not.
she still there?
But yeah, she's still there. And the April 3rd, 1974 tornado went right behind this house and did not touch it. So I'll let y'all decide if the lady in white is protecting it. So here is the Peterson-Dumino house. There's the light with the ghost inside it there. And there she is, and there she flies off.
Oh, bless her heart.
A lot of historic homes have ghosts in them. A bed and breakfast. Here's the Samuel Bray house. This is over in the off Bardstown Road in the Bashford Manor area. Numerous ghost stories associated with this house. A lot of Civil War ghosts associated with it. The Union troops used to camp there on the estate there at the Bray house, and so a number of people have seen Civil War ghosts there at that house. Here's another bed and breakfast, the Tucker House. I think almost every bed and breakfast or Airbnb has a ghost associated with it. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, it is ghost central of Louisville and of America, if you ask me. hundreds of ghosts supposedly reside here. There's a ghost there.
There's Casper.
Casper go flying off. So here's Waverly Hills. A lot of people died there of tuberculosis. They say hundreds or thousands of people died there of that dreadful disease.
Yeah.
Is that still open?
Yes, it's still there, and they still do ghost tours there at the sanatorium. It is located way out Dixie Highway near the Bobby Nichols Golf Course, just off Stone Street Road. Here's some photographs of Waverly Hills. Now, David Dominy is the ghostologist of Louisville. I don't really get into the ghost of old Louisville. I let David do that. He's written a number of books on the ghost of old Louisville. But during one of my talks on haunted houses of Louisville, one of the audience members came up to me afterwards, gave me an address of an old house in old Louisville, and said, "Steve, I grew up in this house. All sorts of weird things would happen there. They would experience a lot of electrical malfunctions, apparitions, a lot of different things would happen at this home." And so he gave me the address. I went to old Louisville to look it up. I'm not going to say what the address is. I'm not sure who currently owns the house. I don't want to scare them about this. But here are houses on either side of that house. And there's the house itself that my audience member said was haunted there down in the old Louisville area. But he would say that people would constantly come and go, and it was just a lot of strange occurrences, he would say, there at that house. The most haunted house, though, in Louisville is the Culbertson Mansion over in New Albany. I've talked to a lot of the staff there at the Culbertson, and they tell you tales that would raise the hair on the back of your neck of what they have experienced, personally experienced there at the Culbertson. A lot of cold spots, apparitions, cigarette smells, things like that. Here's the what the house looks like. It's a beautiful mansion over in New Albany. If you've not been there, I highly recommend going there. It's beautiful. But here's a haunting photograph of it. This is up in the attic space. It's very beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Now then, they actually have some websites that talk about the ghost here at the Culbertson, but this website about the ghost is all totally fake. They have a haunted house in the carriage house there at the Culbertson. So if you go online and you look up ghosts at the Culbertson, you're actually reading stories that the staff has made up about ghosts there, but because of the carriage house that they use as a haunted house. So anyways, the Olmsted, it's just down Frankfort Avenue here, down Shelbyville Road. And I used to do ghost talks there, and one time none of my electronic equipment worked. The laptop, the cameras, nothing worked. And so I told everyone, let's get up and go to another room down the way, which we did, and everything did work at that other location. So I thought maybe a ghost was sort of haunting me, if you will, because this is on the campus of a senior facility, and unfortunately some people have died there, and I think that these ghosts were playing a trick on me there at the Olmsted with my haunted house talk. Now then, Sam Thomas was a famous historian of Louisville, wrote over 20 books on Louisville history, and he passed away in 2012. And I was out of the country at that time, and when I got back from my trip to Europe, I called up his widow. His wife's name was Debbie Thomas. I said, "Debbie, sorry I was out of town when Sam passed away and y'all had the visitation and the funeral." And I asked her if Sam had written any other books that had yet to be published. And she goes, "Yes, Steve, Sam wrote a book and it's ready to be published, but I have no money to get it implemented or get it published." And I said, "Okay, well, Debbie, I'll think about it, see what I can do." And so immediately, shortly after I talked to Debbie about that situation, a very wealthy Louisvillian contacted me, and we were talking Louisville history. And at the end of that conversation, he goes, "Steve, I've just hired a researcher, and we're going to do a book on the Olmsted Park system here in Louisville." I said, "Whoa, time out. Sam Thomas has already written that book. It's ready to go for publication, but his widow Debbie doesn't have the money to get it published." So I put him and Debbie together, and within a year or so they had created the Olmsted book on Louisville's Olmsted
Oh.
parks. So they actually got that done. I actually got to write the book review in the Courier Journal back in 2013. Now, was Sam up there pulling some strings, making sure that his last book got published by this series of events of me being out of town, not going to his visitation? I had to call his widow to talk about a possible book, having a wealthy Louisvillian contact me. Anyways, all this whole sequence of events was very fascinating, how it all came together, and whether or not Sam from Beyond was making sure his last book got published. But it did. Very nice. So anyways, I'll let y'all determine how that came together, but interesting. So has anyone here seen a ghost? Anyone has any ghost at their houses or seen a ghost? No ghost. I haven't, other than the experience I had at the Peterson-Dumanel house, I've not really encountered what I might think would be a ghost. But I've actually had a number of people here in some of my talks that have seen ghosts, but there's no ghosts today. Okay, well that's a good thing. So, where do you want to go see ghosts tonight, this week? Where do you want to go see some ghosts? I can tell you where you can go see some dead people tonight, or this week, or this month in October. Guess where you get to go?
Bardstown Road.
No, you go to Hillcrest Avenue.
Oh.
Haunted Hillcrest. Hillcrest Avenue has all their decorations now. I was just by there just recently, and boy, these folks really put. Have you all been down to Hillcrest to see all the Halloween decorations they put out? It is phenomenal what they do there. Highly recommend it. I would encourage y'all to take the van out and go down and see all this. There you see a lot of hauntings there at Hillcrest. Now then, this is my house where I live, and I decorate it with a huge pumpkin on the turret that I have. The kids of the neighborhood call it the Pumpkin Palace. And so whenever they come out for Halloween, they always have to get photographs taken in front of our
That looks pretty big.
pumpkin. Yes, it is. It's pretty good size, yes. But the kids love it. I've been doing it now for 35 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
In fact, they always ask me, "You're going to do it this year?" You know, it's a tradition there in the neighborhood that I do this. And so, so now then, to paraphrase the Cowardly Lion, now do you believe in ghosts? Boo. Okay. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed that ghostly tale. And again, has anyone seen any ghosts or any other hauntings that you want to talk about?
In the movies.
Just in the movies, and that's where you prefer to see them, correct?
Right.
Okay, well let me